Welcome back to Incremental, the continuous improvement podcast. This is our practice edition where we talk about improvements and tie them back to lean principles. This is episode 155, and I'm Uriel Eisen of Austere Manufacturing and ARDA.
And I am Devin Bedoni of Like Precision, and our quote today, "Observation is the mother of improvement," from Shigeo Shingo in the Shingo Production Management System. I think that's what it's called. Sound right?
Yeah, he wanted his own.
Yeah.
TPS.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. We had a conversation with a fellow yesterday who wrote some books on lean, which I think we'll talk about more next week. But he was asking, it was sort of about ARDA, but he was like, well, what's their on-time delivery? Like about the customers we're going after.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's a great question, but like they don't know. They don't know that. And he's like, what? Who doesn't know that number? It's like, I think the people who are calling you to come look at their factory are like really dialed, you know?
Yeah.
But it was interesting because it does feel like it's just really easy to skip, like really understanding the current condition. And this feels like that.
Yes. Exactly.
I mean, I guess not only that. This is also just like, I know in his books he recommends like standing in the circle for 8 hours. But it all feels like very tied to just understanding the current condition. Like just watch and see what is happening.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's sort of obvious, right? Observation is the mother of improvement. But simultaneously, yeah, we do consistently take it for granted that we understand. And the number of instances in his books where he comes in and looks at a situation with fresh eyes and in a matter of moments, like suggests an improvement that everybody familiar with has not thought of, that has huge gains, like immediately with low friction and low cost, is kind of like, okay, yeah, there's something to this, like step back and observe for a while.
Yeah. It is certainly useful. I think we definitely get stuck. I mean, the name of the podcast is Incremental, and I think the big flaw with that approach is it doesn't preclude, but it assumes that we should be sort of polishing what we have, not re-examining and looking for like really stepwise changes in like big, like radical shifts in our efficiency, not like, oh yeah, shave 3 seconds off every time I swing the door open. That's cool.
I'll have to loop back because I don't remember the exact situation, but one example in that latest Shigeo Shingo book was, I think he like came in, suggested a change. Everybody was like, no, that doesn't seem like a good idea. And he was like, well, let's just try it. We can do it today. It costs nothing. And it was like a rearrangement or like a resequencing.
Okay.
I think they did it in a matter of like 2 hours, the whole improvement. And then by the end of the day, they'd shaved like whatever, many hours off of this simple, like a one process that they were trying to refine.
That's funny.
With like zero cost.
Yeah, right.
And at the beginning, everyone was like, that doesn't seem like a good idea. It doesn't seem possible. I don't think it'll help. I have to loop back.
I was thinking about this batch size thing and how radically, how approaching flow can radically change your lead times, but it's so non-intuitive. We talked about breast milk production, but today as I was making coffee in a rush for this podcast, because now we're starting really early, it is so tempting to fill the kettle to the top. Right? And then boiling water, like, the specific energy of water is really high, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to heat water. And I was thinking, like, if you had a cafe and wanted to deliver coffee to whatever, as many clients as possible in a timely manner, like filling the kettle more often and just putting in the amount of water that is required for your next brew, assuming you can't switch to like continuously,
well, that's what espresso is,
heated
basically.
water. I don't
Sort of.
think it was designed for that purpose, like to solve
No.
that pain point. But yeah, totally. Right. It's like, let's heat the water. Anyway, it's kind of interesting because the more you fill the kettle, the more batch delays you get. And it feels efficient because you're not walking back and forth to the faucet. And so the kettle operator feels like, oh, I'll just pop it full and then I have tons of hot water. So now every time someone asks for hot water, I have it.
Yeah.
Until I don't, but...
What do you do for work? Oh, I'm a kettle operator.
Kettle tender. Anyway, talk some improvements.
Let's do it. Oh, I just got signed out of our Google Sheet, so you should probably lead us out.
All right. So, let's see. A pretty well. I'll just start off with an exciting one that we've been wanting to do for a while, and we finally set aside the time to do it. We launched a free Kanban generator on the Arda website.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. We did it like a year ago. We put one up, but at that point, our Kanbans didn't look very good. But in this time, just to completely, I don't know, to be completely transparent, we put it up, and the QR codes basically went to our website. Because it was like, well, if they go directly to the item, then it gets people used to a workflow that Arda doesn't really deliver, right? Like if you use Arda, it goes to Arda, not to the webs, like to where you make the purchase. So we're like, it gets people used to a workflow that we don't really do. But then I printed one off and I scanned it and I went to the website and I was like this doesn't, like, the image is really nice. The card looks good relative to like doing them in Sharpie on an index card like we used to do, right? So like it definitely delivers some value, but it really felt like the QR code going to the place where you're buying is sort of the magic.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's quite updated, but we're making that switch. So if you want to make good looking Kanban cards for free, you can do that on our website. And then we were kind of like, well, what if it cuts into our sales, right? Like, what if people don't subscribe to Arda? It's like,
and they just use that.
Yeah, but then it's like, well, then we haven't built a good enough product. Like, our product should deliver significantly more value, and I think it will and does. But also, this might be a really nice entry point. I don't know. So we'll see what it does.
Interesting.
But yes, if you want nice looking Kanban cards, we struggled for years to make nice cards. Now you can make nice cards. Anyway.
Nice. We have consistently, I think we're not the only ones, counting parts during a production run is a challenge. And we've attempted multiple different sort of scenarios in order to kind of get a handle on this. And recently, as we started doing split orders and trying to flow parts more through the shop, so like we'll have some done at the machine, some will get pulled for whatever tumbling, deburring, packing.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, you start to get a scenario where you have parts spread across that you need a certain number of exactly spread across several different processes or operations, and trying to keep track of that. There's just a lot of room for error, I guess, is the bottom line.
Okay.
So we finally made an actual SOP for how we're going to handle parts counting at the machine. Specifically, we had come up with sort of an idea for adjusting the parts counter on the machine, but it didn't have really good backstops to tell whether it had been done or not. Like there was no...
You mean using the part counter built into the control?
Yeah. There's like no timestamp to know. Like what we had been doing was like saying like if you make scrap, reduce the number of parts made. But then you get to the end of the run, you're like, well, did everybody do that properly? So we've updated our SOP to not do that, to handle that differently, and we made a little scrap, a log sheet for parts basically that goes along with the Traveler, where you can log any parts taken from the machining station and also log any parts that were scrapped during production. so that you have sort of a physical record to compare to your physical parts.
That is cool.
Yeah, we haven't fully rolled it out yet, so we'll see how it works.
What do you mean a physical record on paper?
Yeah.
Interesting. That feels like it has the same issue of not knowing if someone recorded something, or is it just easy enough to do the recording that it's a little bit lower friction, and so the hope is there's higher compliance?
I think it's lower friction, so higher compliance, and also
Gotcha.
we put a spot where you can write down who did it and when.
Who done it?
Very, very
Nice.
simple.
Nice.
Very simple timestamp. Yeah.
Very nice. That's cool. I got sort of on that topic. Well, anyway, I was thinking of you when this happened. I got the very gratifying text. I found the 3D. We were trying to 3D print something. We've 3D printed before. And it was like I found the file and I added it to Arda, and I don't know. It was like a big win, and not because we're using Arda, but because it is sort of.
And not because you found the file, but
not because we found the file. I mean, all those things were nice. But because there's this awesome thing that happens when you have a single source of truth, that I think I was thinking of you guys because I think you achieved that with your sort of job management system, where it's where everyone goes for everything, and we've really started to lean in on, like, instead of emailing files to each other for 3D printing or uploading them to a shared folder, like just like, oh no, I created the part in Arda and I added the file to it, and suddenly that's like the first place people check, and if it's not in there, and now it kind of, everyone knows that, and so it kind of incentivizes you to kind of do that from the get-go. I don't know, it kind of has become like, I feel like over the last month in our shop has become like the go-to system, not just for parts that like are production, just kind of more for everything, like soft jaws, like just like more and more stuff, like we add notes, we add files, so that was cool.
Yeah, it's huge. And once you start to rely on it, you start to find the holes pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And assuming you can iterate, I find that system tends to evolve and become high functioning really quickly.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's crazy how much time it saves.
Yeah.
And the reason it like made me think of it, what you just said with your improvement, is I think like without standards there is no improvement. Now you have a standard, and if you rely on it to the point where you sort of don't check it and everyone knows that, right? Like if everyone's double checking anyway, like, oh yeah, the machine's never right, so we always hand count anyway. It's like, okay, well, now there's less burden on, oh shit, I forgot to update the machine. Let me walk back over there to make sure I did it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Nice. So we're doing basically 100% first article inspections on our CMM now, which has been cool.
Very cool.
And we have just in our Airtable, we have just like a little inspection upload field for a inspection report, a simple like text field where you type in who did the inspection, and then we had just like a pass fail.
Okay.
And we realized that the pass fail was not actually a good way to capture all of the information, because we pretty routinely have some customers who either set unrealistic expectations on a print and then tell us to ignore them, or have mismatched model to print specifications, things like that, basically. And not to get too into the weeds, but you don't really want to like fake your inspection sheet to show bad information. But you also don't want to be like calling parts bad that the customer is totally fine receiving. And sometimes that the friction of getting them to completely re-update their documentation is kind of like, this is not our fight to fight.
That's interesting.
We added a couple options to our inspection results, which is one was actually a simple one, which is just like a separate op1 inspection for parts that run across multiple machines, because sometimes
Okay.
an operator is inspecting that, and so we have multiple selection options now, where you can do an op1 inspection, load a result, and then a final, and then we added this one that's basically like failed with engineering approval, so that we can like sort of capture that result accurately and not be tempted to sort of be falsifying results one way or another. If
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. There's one customer in particularly that drives this.
I mean, that's cool that you're seizing that by the horns, because I feel like, having worked in R&D before, I did manual machining, but more like prototyping machining, where you're like, oh, I need to take a little more off,
Yeah.
I would send people prints that in retrospect made no sense. Like, I remember getting a call in college. I sent someone a print and he was like, this has like, I don't know, 6 or 7 decimals. And I was like, it had like 6 or 7 decimals and was plus or minus 5 thou.
Yeah.
and it's like, it's on the computer. You just like, you do it. And then I was like, yeah, but that's nominal. So I don't want to have like a bad starting point. Like, that's the real starting point, right? Plus or minus 5 thou. Not understanding that you could just like eliminate all those, most of those decimals and go plus or minus 4 thou. And then it's like coherent and makes sense. Anyway.
That's very funny.
That's cool. Let's see. So we're redoing our Kanbans for ordering stock. And the reason is we had an issue with our vendor, our old new vendor. Well, interestingly, yes, and it's the same problem. With our old vendor, we had an issue where they would mix cut sizes into one box. So you're trying to get to whatever block size, and you have to dig through 500 of a different block size. Most recently, we did start getting trays from you guys that had mixed sizes on them, and only discovering like sort of once we pulled them from inventory.
Oh, interesting.
And I totally see the temptation, because it's like you have a little more than can fit on one tray, right? And
That's
so it goes
a good highlight of our training lack of process, because someone excuse me, someone new did the cutting this time.
I kind of figured. But I think the fact that 2 vendors have had that issue with us, I think speaks to, my guess is most people don't have that approach of, the whole order gets sent to the saw and the person at the saw makes rational choices that aren't really considering the end customer, but rational from their perspective for sure. Anyway, we're shifting back to our old vendor because they're on the same side of the water now that we moved across the water from you guys. So it'll be more convenient, but to avoid that same issue, we are going to issue a PO per stock size.
Yeah.
And I think in there, because they have a huge facility, I'm guessing those POs will flow separately. So like they'll be working on one PO at a time is my hope.
Yeah, hope so.
We will see. Anyway.
That will also probably free you up to order more on a need basis.
Yeah, because it's next day.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, is yours next day every day?
Next day, every day. Yeah. I mean,
our perks to being over there.
Yeah, it's next day if you order before like 11 a.m. But still, that's huge.
That's huge, though.
Yeah. We're still trying to decide how to deal with like, it won't be delivered on trays, and our workflow is designed around trays, and it seems really dumb for the person at the saw in their facility who we are paying to load them into boxes, and then for us to unload them from the boxes and put them on trays. So we don't have that many stock sizes, so we might just go to like a 2-bin system. Right now we have like a 5-bin system with the trays. I think we might just go to a 2-bin system with like 500 or 800 blocks and have space by the CNC for a box of that size, which isn't huge. That sounds big. It's not that big. And then have one backup box, but we'll see.
That makes sense. Cool. Speaking of, this is a long list because we started this list, I think, before you went on paternity leave.
Oh, yeah. I was looking at it. I was like, man, we've improved a lot.
So that's kind of stale. But we build out CMM CAD templates. So this CMM software has a decent way to like, it's not very good. It has a way to like place parts, like snap parts in 3D space in CAD. But the workflow there is kind of more oriented around placing them approximately and then locating them with the CMM manually.
Okay.
Anyway, not to get too in the weeds, but if you pull a part into the CMM software with an origin in a weird random spot, reorienting it can be a little bit of a hassle. So in order to make it, well, two things. One, to make that process faster, to have a universal coordinate that matched the CMM, and also to make our modeling and our 3D print flow quick and accurate to what will be in real 3D space. We made some CAD templates that we can drop parts in that there's a few different ones, but the primary one we're using has a 3D print kind of like dummy block that already has its like adaptation interface set up to the work holding on the CMM, and we just kind of like drop our part in there, joint it, remove whatever we need to, and then print it.
Very cool.
It's turning into a very cool workflow.
That's super cool.
Really, I don't remember. Did we talk about it already a little bit on the pod?
We did. I don't think we did on the pod.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's yeah, we talked a little bit about it speeding things up. I think.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So it's made the whole process like very frictionless and quick. It's, it still takes time, but the way the time is kind of allocated and when it happens, it's not really like pulled out of the overall production flow time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel like luck doesn't really have anything to do with it, considering you did this intentionally. But I feel like I've spoken to a number of friends who have worked in other shops where the quality department is sort of like this like big thorn in everyone's side that really slows things down, and they're like, well, we can only inspect this many parts, and our job is very hard and complicated and precise, and don't rush us and don't ask us to improve. Anyway, I'm sure there's exceptions to that, but yeah. So I might just rip through a few, just keeping an eye on the clock here. I know we both have hard stops. So updated the webbing Kanban. We were ordering rolls, increments of 4. So lately I ordered 8 because we went through a lot more than usual. And it showed up in a bale of 5 plus 3 rolls that were loose and totally tangled.
Ooh,
yeah, we've gotten tangled webbing frequently because if you drop a roll of webbing, it gets really messy really fast, and rewinding it is really tough. Anyway, so we updated all of our Kanbans to be increments of 5 because it seems that they come into their facility baled in rolls of 5. Hopefully that persists,
It's so funny that more of this information doesn't flow downstream, right?
I know.
Like if you buy like lathe inserts, they tell you like it comes in a pack of 10 or it comes in a pack of 5. Like you're going to get a better price at that quantity. And also they won't be in a bag and chip each other. I remember the first time I ordered carbide inserts, I ordered them from McMaster. I was like just a hobbyist at that point. And I was like, wow, these are really expensive. I'm going to get 1 or 2 of each. And they all just came loose in a bag, and they were all destroyed because they just
that's surprising from McMaster. Damn.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I think probably they were like, why is this guy ordering 1 insert? Like,
right. Probably a hobbyist. Just toss it in a bag. He'll learn his lesson.
Exactly.
So that was that. Rearranged the shop quite a bit. We're still moving in, even though it's been months because paternity leave, etc. Finally added a shadow board for our brooms. Because it's just like a hook where different brooms go, and they are nice if they go in the right place, but also they would just end up floating all over. And if you glance at the wall, it's not like a conspicuous absence. So that was nice. We added fast scanning into the Arta cart. So if you have a stack of cards, you can just like literally scan rapid fire and then click a button and it adds them all to the cart instead of waiting like,
Oh,
depending who you ask or how fast your internet is, quite some time.
Yeah.
So that I think will be good. Matt built a migration program for Arta, so it takes all the things from someone's old version of Arta and puts them into a new version. We still have like a version control, not issue, but challenge around based on our current architecture. So this largely solves it, but there are a bazillion little details to get right. So it didn't bring in our PO number, our like last issued PO basically. So then it started back at 1.
Oh.
Right. So like, and this is why testing on austere is a good first step.
Yeah.
So that was good. We also moved to a global PO number rather than we had a per vendor PO number basically that incremented.
Yeah.
So now it's just global.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll let you go. I have a few more.
Nice. I'll just bang through a few too. Minor but helpful. We got a full-sized fridge for our break room and rearranged so there's room to sit at the table. We used to have 2 couches and a table in here, and it was just cramped, so we got rid of a couch. Full-size fridge for obvious reasons. There just wasn't enough room for everybody's lunch.
Nice.
We added a mist collector to our R450, which was huge. That was like a major offender to the air quality in the shop. That machine kind of runs more hours than most of the other machines per day.
Right.
And so it was producing a lot of fog. We made a 3D print queue shared folder in our Google Drive.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and basically it's just like CMM fixtures were the inner, like the amount of communication required to be like, okay, gonna need to print a fixture for the CMM today. Do you also need to print like who's going first? So we put them in a folder, and now anything that's in there gets pulled and just printed as one job, so it all gets printed at once.
Oh, gotcha.
Potentially. Or if it's just like you're printing one, you check there if there's another one in there that needs to get done. It really has only come up a few times, but the few times that it has been used, it was very helpful.
That's cool.
We added a gated entryway area so
your dogs don't run out?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That's why.
Okay.
Yeah, our main entry is also where like shipping and receiving UPS comes in and grabs stuff and takes stuff away. And we have 3 dogs in the shop with different employee dogs. And so they would just like, go crazy and not actually maul them, but, mob them.
Those delivery people do not like dogs. Typically.
I mean, one guy like really loves the dogs here, but
Nice.
a lot of them don't. And it just it's nice. Quorum built it out of wood. It's more professional, just a nice entry. It's not actually like, you don't have to like open a lock to get through it. It's just a swing door. And then we started using the CMM for some of our repeat work and discovered that, with basically what the CMM can measure, that our work holding was distorting some parts. So we updated the way we were holding one part in particular to kind of account for that for better quality.
So like you were clamping it, and then when you released the clamping, the machining got distorted, basically?
Yeah,
Like
basically a tight tolerance hole was getting oval.
Oh.
And then also it's like 2 holes that were milled on either ends of a part by flipping the trunnion. And when the whole part was bowing, it was, moving away from center line.
Fascinating.
And so we also added probing to find the center line on either side. So that's helping quite a bit there.
Oh, cool. I remember Robin Renzetti, I forget on what podcast years ago, or maybe on his YouTube, mentioned like if you want to get into precision machining, the first thing you should do is buy an indicator that can read out millionths or something like that. Mm-hmm. It's like, you start to figure a lot of stuff out.
Yeah. Yeah. The way we updated the work holding was going to ID clamping. So it pulls the part instead of compresses the part.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
Rip through a few more, or you keep going?
Oh, yeah, go for it. I got 2 more, but I can do them after.
We added an Articard for the belt slide soft jaws, so we're now trying to think of all of our tooling as production stuff. Like, it needs to be in stock all the time. We are far from that goal, but we are moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of our fixtures now are like wearing out, and we've sort of like taped them and shimmed them and all the things you do. Not in the machine, but like assembly fixtures. And in the machine, some of them are like 3 years old, the soft jaws, and like I've comped in op 2, and at some point it's like, all right, they're aluminum soft jaws, like just remake them. Maybe switch to steel, but that's a separate conversation. Added Articards for our new 3D printed packaging, which we should not be 3D printing, but we are. Used Matt Blackwell's sticker dispenser, which you can download from his website, and it was awesome. Thanks, Matt, for just putting it out there. Super helpful. And switched up our scheduling, our Kanban scheduling on the CNC to try to start to get a sense of updated urgency as triggering continues. That's really covering up a deeper problem, but we'll maybe talk about that once we know more.
Yeah. Nice. Last 2 that I've got here is we updated our setup sheet template with an area for CMM notes. So right now, Will and I, who program, basically run all of the CMM inspections.
Okay.
But there's already some parts where operator will bring the part over, and because the fixturing is so quick change, they can just load and go. And even when you've programmed it, if you like did it yesterday, sometimes it's like, how was this thing oriented exactly? The fixture itself is poka-yoke, but making to the base, to the machine, but the part's not always poka-yoke to the fixture. So we just added a couple places to make notes about orientation, where the file's stored. So just some basic stuff, because it's effectively a whole other setup. It's a simple setup, but it's still another setup. So we needed a way to capture that. And lastly, we actually haven't rolled this one out yet, but we had our post edited.
Are you allowed to put it on this episode?
This part, I mean, we've had it done. So
okay, nice.
We had our post edited for better readability of our tool lists.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, right now it puts out, it really is kind of like a number letter soup. And we're really only looking at 3 things, and there's like 6 things.
Gotcha.
And doing it myself and training someone new to do it, I was like, this takes a lot of, like, it's mentally taxing that little piece of the job, sorting out what's important information and what's not, and actually figuring out what that value is. So now it's just going to put out the 3 things that we're really looking for, which is what's the ID number, what holder are you using, and how far is it sticking out.
Very cool.
And hopefully that'll be better.
That's a great improvement. I have one last one I'm realizing. We had some backsliding in our demos booked per week number for Arda, and kind of dug into like, okay, what's going on? What have we changed? Turns out, what have we not changed was a better question, and we did not do it scientifically. Making all those changes, and we had a really interesting conversation with a guy who, anyway, very good at this stuff. Early employee at Facebook, and he was basically like, most companies struggle to develop a good go-to-market strategy or an effective go-to-market machine, right, where you crank the handle and you get leads, or good leads.
Right.
And when you do, because we had one, when you do, if you tinker with it, because people love to tinker, you're more likely to make it worse and not better. And so you have to really diligently prove out every change you're going to make before sort of pushing it. instead of just being like, yeah, on paper this sounds way better, and not sort of running these little experiments. And so we're sort of dialing a lot of those, making those changes to go back, not fully revert, but just move the things we think are helpful into some of our, like our website and stuff like that. And we are back. We're 50% back from our losses.
Oh wow, that's big.
So it has been really effective so far. Small sample size, just time wise, but that's been an interesting process.
Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool. Right on. Well, I think that's a place to wrap it for today. We are back on our normal train.
Yeah.
So we'll be doing our theory episode 1 week, followed by improvements the following. And yeah, excited to be back into the groove.
Me too. It just popped into my head that we're essentially batching our improvements instead of just like every episode doing both. But it's okay.
We can go back at some point. That's how we did it originally, right?
Yeah, and then they were like hour and a half episodes, I think, and we were like,
true.
all right, this is too much.
Yeah. Well, our improvements have probably slowed down a bit, so maybe it'll be more reasonable.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
Now that it's not just us dicking around in a shop on our own. Yeah.
I need a place to put my pens.
Yeah, exactly. Which I do need a place to put my pens, so no shade on that. That is something I need.
Yeah. Right on. You can find me on the internet at likenprecision.com, on Instagram at lichen_MFG. You can find the pod at incrementalci on Instagram, and there's a Patreon. Check it out.
And you can find me at austere_manufacturing on Instagram and austeremfg.com. And Arda is arda.cards on Instagram and on the internet. If you don't mind, head over to the website and check out the free Kanban tool and tell us what's wrong with it. It's very fresh and definitely could use probably some things. Or what's right with it would also be helpful to hear. And we'll be back next week.
Adios.